Hey guys, this is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, go down to my channel, it'll be down there. But let's get back into it. So anyway, so his mom pulled me aside and was like, dude, like, you need to like leave John out of your drama. Like, he can't handle all of this shit, and like basically kind of just called him like a baby, like a kid, and can't handle real life situations. And honestly, I was like, I didn't get that, because I was just like, I didn't understand like how he couldn't handle that. Like, yes, I get that, like my situation was a little extra, like a little much, like for a normal like kind of person to handle. Not like a normal person, but like it was like something that you don't expect to go into and be like, oh, okay, my family's there. But many people deal with that. Many people have to deal with like, oh, my girlfriend's family is not the best, not the greatest, they have a fight, let me let her cool down in our house really quick. Like, you know, it wasn't like I stayed there for like 5 years. It wasn't like I, you know, leached off of him. It wasn't like I had baby mama drama, or like my family's drama came into like their household, or like type thing, like my parents were fighting them and all of that. I would get that. That's a little extra. That's a little much, you know? But my situation was not like that at all. Like, I did not, like, the only thing is that John felt that he wanted me to stay there for a couple days just to cool off, basically, from my parents. And that's what I basically did. Like, I cooled off from them. And I don't understand what was the whole big issue with it. But she was like, you know, I don't think he can handle this, or whatever, and blah, 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 and shit, or whatever. So anyway, I'm just like, whatever. I ended up going inside. I went inside my house, and my parents were like, basically like, bitch, why you here? And I'm like, I'm staying in here. And they were like, oh, I'm gonna call the cops. And I'm like, call the cops, bitch. Like, let them tell me that I have to leave. And so they ended up calling the cops, my parents, and the cops ended up informing them that they cannot. I was 19, so they're like, you cannot kick her out. She is legally allowed to stay in this house until she's 25. And they were like, my parents were like, what? But she's 18. I thought it was 18. They were like, nah, like it's like 25. I don't think it's quite 25. I think maybe it's like 23, maybe 21. But I'm just gonna say 25. I don't remember. Don't quote me on 25. But yeah, I still had years to go. So, and then they were like, and then my dad was like, oh, so we can kick her out at 20, like, let's just say it's 25. So they were like, oh, we can kick her out at 25. And the cops were like, well, yes and no. Like, you can't just kick her out and like have her to leave. You have to bring her to court. You have to legally request that she needs to be evicted, like things like that, like, because there is squatter rights. So you have the right to stay there. You know, you don't have to pay rent, things like that, or whatever. And so the cops informed a lot of things, and I felt a lot better because I now knew, because my parents used to threaten that they were going to kick me out since I was like 14, basically. So like, they were like, oh, we're going to kick you out at 18, we're going to kick you out at 18. So after 18, I felt like I was walking on eggshells, and I felt like drained physically, mentally, emotionally, like everything, because like I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then eventually I did get kicked out. But then when the cops said that they can't, it gave me like a weight just lifted off my shoulder, because like now I felt like, oh, I'm safe. Like, they can't kick me out. Like, they can't use that to threaten me anymore, because now I'm aware. Now I know. And so it was really eye-opening. And after that, my life kind of got a little better, but it didn't get better right away. So it was about a week after I moved back in, or whatever. I was still not wanting to stay at my parents' house because I still felt uncomfortable, but I felt a little safer. Like, I know that they won't kick me out or whatever, because they always threaten like, oh, when you leave, I'm gonna throw your shit outside. But now they can't do that. So I felt better that I couldn't get kicked out, but I still felt uncomfortable with being present with them. So I still used to go to work, go out, not come home often, and things like that. So anyway, John was very kind and very nice, and he like kept me company all the time. I was just like, oh, I'm not going home yet, I don't want to go home yet, or whatever. We ended up not going back to his house and things like that. Like I told you, like I felt uncomfortable in his house, so I didn't want to stay at his house. I didn't want to go to his house. And so we used to really hang out like anywhere, like at a restaurant. Like we used to go to like McDonald's, Wendy's, just like chill and hang out and talk or whatever, stay at the school, things like that. So one of these times we were out, and he ended up going home. I ended up like bringing him home at like 12 o'clock. We were both at his house, but we stayed outside and talked for about 2 hours, because we were just got into the conversation. We were smoking cigarettes and we just got into the conversation. It was really nice. I felt great, but I didn't want to go home, and I was just like, oh, I wish we could go get breakfast. I don't actually, no, I didn't say that. I was like, oh, I wish I didn't have to go home. And he's like, oh, you know what? He was like, it's okay, let's just have breakfast tomorrow morning. And he was like, just go home, chill for a couple hours, come back out really, really early, and we go get breakfast. So I ended up saying, okay, and I'll see you for breakfast. I didn't end up going home because the bus was now done. Like, I lived where, like, my bus was limited. It wasn't 24 hours. So I was like, oh, the bus is not there. And I'm like, oh, the bus is going to be difficult. By the time I just travel there, I would have to travel back. Because at the time, I lived about 2 hours away from John. Maybe like an hour and a half away from John. And so, literally, it was just like, it didn't make any sense. So I was just like, let me just walk around. I literally walked around. I smoked, I drank, I did some stuff, got on the days, whatever. And I came back to it at like 5:45. And I know we were going to go to breakfast at 6 in the morning. So I was like, oh, let me head to his house. So I ended up going back to his house. And I stayed, his house has a bus stop across the street. So I stayed across the street, and I was like, I texted him and I called him. I was like, hey, I'm outside. You ready for breakfast? And he's like, yeah, let me just get ready. He ended up coming outside at like, what do you call it? He came outside out his side door, because his mom sleeps in the living room. His mom and his sister sleep in the living room. So he was like, I'm just going to come out the side door. So he came out the side door, right? And he came out the side door, and he was like, oh, hey, you ready? And I walked from the bus stop across the street to the front of the house, because I saw him coming out. So I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. And then his mom opened the front door and was like, you guys get in here. And I was like, what? And she just opened the door and left the door open, and then walked inside. Like, she didn't even like said anything or whatever. So anyway, that is another story. Stay tuned. I think I'm gonna make that story right now, so guys, watch that video, because it is a doozy. But that was pretty much it with this story. I'm thinking about the story, oh my god. But that was pretty much it. Stay tuned. Sorry, stay tuned. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell button down below, and we will chat. Bye.